1. Kennel from Hell. At Unforgiven 1999, WWE tried to be different by introducing a completely new match called the Kennel from Hell. It actually sounded brutal, as Al Snow and Big Boss Man were locked inside a steel cage, and that cage itself was inside a Hell in a Cell. But then WWE decided to fill up the space between the two cages with actual guard dogs. The idea was that if either man tried to escape, he'd have to deal with snarling, trained dogs waiting to tear him apart. The idea was to make the match intense, but it ended up being an absolute shit show. The moment the dogs came out, everything just fell apart. Instead of acting aggressive, they acted like regular dogs. Some wandered around, totally uninterested. Some started peeing everywhere. One of them took a massive dump right next to the barricade. And the worst part was that two of the dogs started humping in full view of the cameras. WWE deleted most of the scenes in this match and have never tried this concept again. 2. The Rock vs. Triple H. On a June 5th, 2000 episode of Raw, The Rock was going up against Triple H in an epic street fight match. Now usually in these matches, things get intense, but they're mostly for show. Not this time though. The moment the bell rang, something felt really off. Triple H clocked Rock so hard at one point that the entire crowd gasped in shock. Then Rock fired back, and from there it just turned into a real fight. They were slamming each other into the barricades, into the steel steps, into anything that wasn't nailed down. You could see it in their faces that they were actually fighting each other. WWE didn't say anything afterward, they simply act as if it never existed. The match never showed up in any of those best of collections either, they just quietly stopped talking about it. 3. DX vs. 3 wrestlers. Unforgiven 2006 was absolutely mental, as it featured a Hell in a Cell match where DX faced off against Vince McMahon, his son Shane, and The Big Show. Everyone knew it was going to be chaotic, but no one expected it to be that brutal. Several illegal things took place, like Shane had his throat crushed with a chair, Vince was squashed with a sledgehammer, and worst of all, DX shoved his face into Big Show's rear side. Although the crowd ate it up back then, WWE doesn't want to talk about it now. The gore and crude humor don't vibe with their PG image. Plus, the McMahons probably aren't thrilled about reliving their humiliation. You can find fans still laughing at the kiss my ass moment, but the full match is tough to find officially. 4. The Undertaker vs. Big Boss Man. We have the Big Boss Man featuring again as he faced The Undertaker at WrestleMania 25. It was supposed to be a brutal Hell in a Cell match, but quickly turned into a sluggish, slow battle. However, the real jaw-dropper was the end, when Undertaker hanged Boss Man with a noose in a staged stunt. Even by 1999 standards, it was shocking, and today WWE's not touching that. The scene is too dark, and the match itself is boring. WWE buried this one because it's a creative flop and a PR mess. The Attitude Era loved edgy stuff, but this crossed a line that doesn't fly now. You won't see it in highlight reels or on Peacock's main page. 5. Chris Benois vs. Triple H vs. Shawn Michaels. WrestleMania 20 saw an absolute tearjerker where Chris Benoit, Triple H, and Shawn Michaels fought for the World Heavyweight Championship. The match was iconic, with all three superstars showcasing their immense talent in the ring. All three hit their finishers several times, took nasty blows, and went back and forth. In the end, Chris Benoit won the match deservingly, and the crowd rallied behind him. The match was supposed to be a part of WWE history, but due to the 2007 Chris Benoit tragedy, WWE avoids it like the plague. No WrestleMania recaps, no Peacock spotlight, and not even a single mention in any future episodes. There are several things that are praiseworthy here, like the in-ring art is flawless. Shawn's flips, Triple H's power, Benoit's grit, yet the real-world pain overshadows it. WWE is not hiding it for quality, they're distancing from a dark past. 6. Bret Hart vs. Stone Cold Steve Austin. WrestleMania 13 was when Stone Cold had just exploded onto the scene, and he faced the biggest superstar of the time, Bret Hart, in a submission match. Right from the get-go, the two fought each other like their lives depended on it, much to the delight of the fans. At one point, Austin bladed himself too deep, and he started bleeding profusely. Bret eventually locked him in a sharpshooter, and although Austin didn't tap out, he fell unconscious, which ended the match then and there. This is regarded as one of the most iconic images in WWE history. It was raw, emotional, and technically brilliant, but the heavy bleeding makes it a no-go in today's WWE. With blading now banned and a PG rating in place, WWE avoids promoting the match and rarely talks about it. 7. The Dudley Boys vs. The Undertaker. The Great American Bash 2004 featured a strange and dark match where the goal was to trap Paul Bearer in a glass crypt and pour wet concrete on him. The Undertaker faced the Dudley Boys in this match that was really bizarre. The crowd didn't connect with it, and the imagery was too dark, even for that era. WWE hasn't acknowledged this one in years. Even the most hardcore of fans haven't heard of this match because WWE doesn't promote it, and surely won't repeat the match again. 8. Stone Cold Steve Austin vs. Kane. When you have a first blood match for the WWE title between giants like Kane and Steve Austin, of course there's going to be chaos. The rule was that the first to bleed loses. Austin and Kane brawled with chairs, tables, and even a flaming chair shot that set the ring post ablaze. Austin bled first and lost the title, but the chaos, including Mankind's interference, made it iconic. The only reason the match is now banned is because of the blood. WWE's PG era doesn't vibe with intentional bleeding, which makes the match a big red flag. Fans on Twitter still hype this as peak Attitude Era, but you won't find the full match on Peacock's main page. 9. The Undertaker vs. Triple H. Whenever Triple and The Undertaker face off at WrestleMania, it's bound to be a classic. WrestleMania 17 is no exception, where the two not only fought in the ring, they went to war. They pummeled each other through crowds, smacked each other with chairs, and even took sledgehammer shots. The Undertaker's last ride and Triple H's pedigree had the Houston crowd roaring, but the match is a strict no for today's PG standards, and WWE rarely talks about it now. Those unprotected headshots, blood from minor cuts, and the barbaric blows are too much for the safety standards. Many fans love this as a hidden gem, but it's not in WWE's spotlight. Plus, some of the edgier build-up with Triple H's heel promos is too adult for current branding. If you dig it up, it's a slugfest with awesome chemistry, but it's tucked away for a reason. 10. Goldust vs. Roddy Piper. Goldust was already a creepy guy who scared the life out of kids. But in 1996, when he took on Roddy Piper in a Hollywood backlot brawl, all hell broke loose. This wasn't your typical ring match, and it started in a parking lot with Goldust and Piper smashing each other with trash cans and a baseball bat. They brawled through the streets, ending in the arena with Piper stripping Goldust's gear. On top of this, the match leaned hard into Goldust's provocative, androgynous gimmick, which was edgy even for the 90s. WWE keeps this one buried because the suggestive content in Goldust's character don't vibe with their family-friendly image today. Whenever this match is mentioned, it is only for Piper's intensity and not for the match's quality. 11. Kurt Angle vs. Shane McMahon. King of the Ring 2001 delivered a street fight between Kurt Angle and Shawn McMahon that was insane. Shane, who's not even a wrestler, took suplexes on concrete, crashed through glass panels, and bled buckets. It was later revealed that Shane went through actual glass because the backstage staff mistook it for sugar glass. He was seriously hurt, and this is why WWE doesn't promote the match anymore. It's often lauded as a classic match, but it is buried on Peacock. Shane's guts stole the show, but the real injuries make it uncomfortable to air in the modern era. 12. Shawn Michaels vs. Vader. At SummerSlam 1996, Shawn Michaels defended his WWF title against Vader. On paper, it was supposed to be a dream match. Shawn was in his prime and Vader was built like a wrecking ball. The crowd expected something huge, but instead, it turned into one of the most awkward and uncomfortable main events of that era. Right from the start, the fans could tell something was off. Vader was throwing real stiff shots, and it looked like Shawn wasn't having it. Mid-match, Shawn actually stopped what he was doing, stood over Vader, and cursed at him for missing a spot. He even kicked him while he was down. The fans immediately realized that what was happening was very real. Before you know it, there was unplanned blood, chair shots, and a few botched moves. After that night, WWE made sure to clean it up. Replays were edited and international broadcasts cut large chunks of it. In some places, they didn't even air it again. The match wasn't officially banned, but WWE clearly doesn't want to talk about it. 13. Chris Benoit vs. Kevin Sullivan. At WCW's Great American Bash 96, Chris Benoit clashed with Kevin Sullivan in a Falls Count Anywhere brawl. It was chaos as it had chairs flying, crowd brawls, and even a scrap in the bathroom. But the real heat came from their personal drama. Benoit was involved with Sullivan's wife Nancy, so every punch felt personal. The match was hardcore and intense, but it's actually banned because of Benoit's 2007 tragedy. WWE owns WCW's footage now, and they've wiped most of Benoit's matches from their archives, including this one. Although the match was not bad itself, you won't find it anywhere on WWE's official platforms. 14. Eddie Guerrero vs. JBL. At Judgment Day 2004, Eddie Guerrero's WWE title defense against JBL turned into one of the bloodiest matches in company history. After a deep blade shot, Eddie lost an alarming amount of blood, nearly fainting at times. The match itself wasn't bad, but the violence crossed a line. Today, WWE doesn't show this match anymore. Blading is banned, and Eddie's condition during the match has aged poorly. Many fans still regard it as a classic, but PG WWE has locked it away, with good reason. 15. Jeff Hardy vs. Umaga. One Night Stand 2008 gave us Jeff Hardy vs. Umaga in a Falls Count Anywhere match that was nuts. The two fought through the arena, and Jeff took it one step further by jumping off a freaking production truck. It was an insane match that kept the fans over the edge. There were tables, ladders, and brutal bumps involved in every segment of the match. Jeff quickly became a fan favorite due to his daring moves, but WWE doesn't talk about it these days. It's because the stunts, like that truck drive, are too dangerous for today's safety-first mindset. You can still see small clips of Jeff's leap, but the full match is buried by WWE. They simply don't want the young fans to copy any of those moves and get injured. 16. Vince McMahon vs. Stephanie McMahon. 2003 was already a wild year for WWE, and they decided to take it up a notch by booking one of the most uncomfortable storylines ever. On the No Mercy pay-per-view, Vince McMahon faced his own daughter Stephanie in a brutal I Quit match. The build-up was already hard to watch, as the two dished out some super creepy insults at each other. But the real drama began when the match started and Vince didn't hold back. He did some unspeakable things to his own daughter, like slapping her repeatedly, choking her with a pipe, and even throwing her around as if she's a male opponent. The commentary tried to sell it as tough love, but it just came off as disturbing. When the match got really unbearable, Vince's wife Linda stepped in and threw the towel, but the damage had already been done by that time. Fans were left shell-shocked at how far WWE went with this storyline. Even during the Wild Attitude Era, this was too personal and too violent. Today, WWE acts like this match never existed. It's rarely mentioned, and you'll never find it in any highlight reels. With WWE's PG rebrand and focus on women's empowerment, this match is completely off limits. 17. Randy Orton vs. Cactus Jack. At Backlash 2004, a young Randy Orton faced hardcore legend Cactus Jack, aka Mick Foley, in a match that was supposed to toughen up the rising star. But instead, it nearly broke him. What followed was one of the most brutal hardcore matches in WWE history. Barbed wire bats, flaming weapons, and thousands of thumbtacks were used. Orton took a full bump into the tacks and walked away with his back shredded. Blood poured throughout the match, with both men soaked by the end. While it helped establish Orton's career, it pushed WWE's violence meter to the max. Today you can still find the match on WWE's archives, but it's not mentioned like the other classic matches. With the PG era in full swing, blood-soaked matches with thumbtacks and barbed wire aren't exactly something WWE wants to promote to kids. While die-hard fans still remember it as a hardcore masterpiece, WWE quietly moved this one to the vaults. 18. John Cena vs. Jesus. Yeah, you heard that right. In 2004, WWE booked John Cena in a street fight against a wrestler literally named Jesus at Armageddon. This sounded like a parody, but it was a dead serious match. The man behind the character, Aaron Aguilera, was Carlito's bodyguard, and got involved in a storyline where he supposedly stabbed John Cena at a nightclub. The entire plot was absurd, and the match itself was ridiculously one-sided. Cena beat Jesus senseless with weapons, chains, and fists, all while selling the revenge angle. It felt more like a gang fight than a wrestling match, and the poor bodyguard stood no chance. WWE eventually realized how bad it looked, both the stabbing storyline and the name choice, and quietly stopped talking about it. Although you can find a short 1-minute clip on YouTube, you won't find the entire match, because it's that absurd. The whole thing is too controversial and cringeworthy for today's standards. Plus, with the religion arc involved, it is 100% certain that WWE is not going to repeat this match again. 19. Sable vs. Luna. At WrestleMania 14, Sable teamed with Mark Merrow to take on Luna and Goldust in what was supposed to be a mixed tag spectacle. But the match wasn't really about wrestling. It was a way to showcase Sable in provocative gear and angles that leaned way too far into adult content. Moreover, the actual match featured no fighting, but just the two women pulling each other's hair, slapping each other, and screaming as if they've gone crazy. The crowd didn't care about the match either. They just seemed interested in the lewd visuals. Moreover, the commentary spat out some very weird lines, which ended up aging terribly. WWE was all in on pushing boundaries during the Attitude Era, but this match has since become a cautionary tale. With the current focus on athleticism and respect in the women's division, this match has been buried deep in the archives. You won't hear it mentioned during Women's Revolution tributes, and it's definitely not on the highlight reel of WrestleMania moments. WWE doesn't want to remind anyone of the time when divas were just eye candy. This match is the perfect example of that era's worst instincts. 20. Muhammad Hassan vs. The Undertaker. In 2005, WWE introduced Muhammad Hassan, a controversial character who used to come down to the ring and rant about how Arabs like him are looked down upon in the US. Fans loved him, and he was regarded as one of the most unique heels in history. However, fate had other plans, and his career was cut short despite him doing nothing wrong. On the July 5th episode of SmackDown, which aired 2 days later, WWE had a segment where 5 men in ski masks and camo pants attacked The Undertaker. It was part of Hassan's storyline, but unfortunately, the segment aired just hours after the real-life London bombings on July 7th. Fans were absolutely livid as they felt WWE was mocking the tragedy. The network broadcasting SmackDown at the time, UPN, also faced intense backlash, so it reportedly told WWE to get rid of the character. Hence, after a defeat to The Undertaker at the Great American Bash, Hassan was completely written off TV. To this day, the match and the angle are hidden from the official platforms, and WWE refuses to talk about it. Poor Hassan ended up being fired for something that was way beyond his control. It's a classic example of being in the wrong place at the wrong time. 21. Vince McMahon vs. God. In 2006, WWE's creativity hit an all-time low when they booked a tag match with Vince and Shane McMahon facing Shawn Michaels and God. Yeah, God was Shawn's tag team partner. This was all part of Vince's vendetta against HBK's religious persona. The match featured spotlights representing God, Vince mocking religion, and commentary filled with tasteless jokes. At one point, Vince even tried to pin God. The crowd wasn't sure whether to laugh or cringe, as they knew WWE had gone too far. It's no surprise that the match is now completely buried. WWE no longer shows it, talks about it, or even hints that it ever happened. The PG era, with its family-friendly branding, has no room for mocking religion in the form of a wrestling match. If you bring this match up today, you'll get nothing but awkward silence from WWE. 22. Big Show vs. Akibono. At WrestleMania 21, WWE tried to add global flavor by booking a legit sumo match between the Big Show and Japanese sumo legend Akibono. On paper, it was a cross-cultural event, but in reality, it was one of the most awkward spectacles in WrestleMania history. Both men wore traditional sumo gear, which meant Big Show was nearly naked in front of a confused American crowd. The match itself was lame, as Big Show, who's not a professional sumo wrestler by any means, was chucked out of the ring inside 2 minutes. There was no proper wrestling, just two large men awkwardly pushing each other with their sweaty bodies. Today, the match is still available in WWE's official YouTube channel, but it's barely mentioned, and they haven't repeated it ever since. Even Big Show rarely talks about it, and I'm pretty sure his friends taunted him about that match for years. 23. Trish Stratus vs. Jackie Gada. On a 2002 episode of Raw, Trish Stratus teamed up with John Bradshaw Layfield to face off against Tough Enough winner Jackie Gada and Chris Nowinski in a mixed tag team match. It was supposed to be an exciting matchup, but quickly turned into a train wreck as the inexperienced Jackie put on a horror show. She botched every move, missed many of her slaps, and her timing was all over the place. Jackie's reaction time was also pretty late, and the most insane thing is that she even tried to kick out of Trish's finisher at the end. The crowd was stunned. The commentators didn't know how to save this, and poor Trish did her best to hold it together. By the end, it was labeled one of the worst matches ever shown on WWE television. While WWE didn't ban it outright, they did everything they could to make sure no one saw it again. The match never appeared in replays, retrospectives, or highlight packages. Even Jackie later admitted it was terrible. WWE's entire women's division has evolved massively since then, and the company prefers to highlight matches that show that growth. 24. Brock Lesnar vs. Hardcore Holly. On a 2002 episode of SmackDown, Brock Lesnar faced Hardcore Holly in a match that became infamous for a horrific injury. Lesnar picked Holly for a routine powerbomb and ended up breaking his neck accidentally. The move was badly mistimed, and Holly landed awkwardly on his upper spine. The match continued and aired as planned, but Holly was out for over a year. WWE has never highlighted the match again, and even now you won't find it in Lesnar's match recaps or on SmackDown playlists. WWE isn't trying to erase the incident entirely, but they also don't want to remind fans of a botched move that sidelined a wrestler for 13 months. It's one of the many early career moments that WWE buries to protect both its brand and its current safety image. 25. Edge vs. Matt Hardy. In 2005, WWE blurred the lines between reality and storyline when they let Matt Hardy and Edge feud over Lita, because it wasn't just a plot. Edge and Lita had a real affair, and Matt was actually fired over it. But fan outrage brought him back, and WWE turned the scandal into a real match. The two bitter rivals then faced each other at SummerSlam, where they ended up throwing real punches. The match was so brutal that Hardy was busted open early, and the whole thing felt less like wrestling and more like a grudge match. Even though the whole thing was still scripted, the two certainly crossed the line at times. Unsurprisingly, fans loved the brutal match, but WWE realized they had taken it too far. The personal nature of the match, plus the unscripted intensity, made it hard to control. After a few weeks, the feud ended and WWE buried most of it. Now you won't find the match in any official platforms, and the company barely mentions it. 26. Kane vs. Shane McMahon. In 2003, WWE pushed one of its darkest storylines when Kane unmasked and turned into a full-blown monster. As part of his heel run, he feuded with Shane McMahon, and things got insanely graphic. On one episode of Raw, Kane electrocuted Shane's testicles with a car battery. Yeah, that actually aired on national TV. Ouch. The match that followed was at Unforgiven, a last man standing bout filled with brutal stunts, including Shane falling 25 feet onto a stage. While the spots were insane, the match itself is rarely talked about because of the storyline's disturbing nature. Kane's behavior was basically torture, and the visuals were way beyond WWE's PG line. And oh yeah, the battery thing has never been tried again.